What happens when a franchise finally finds the golden ticket, the thing every fan base prays for, the quarterback who can actually change everything, and then somehow acts like they don't even know what they're holding? Well, welcome to Cleveland. And welcome to the absolute circus that exploded the second the Miami Dolphins decided they were done lurking in the shadows and were ready to put their chips squarely on Shedeur Sanders. Picture this. Browns GM Andrew Berry is sitting in his office, sipping lukewarm coffee while staring at an Excel spreadsheet, probably thinking the biggest drama of his day would be a cap adjustment. Then, out of nowhere, boom! Miami barges into the storyline like it's WrestleMania, practically shouting, "We'll take Shedeur Sanders." The man almost baptized his laptop in coffee. Because this isn't your everyday rumor tweet or insignificant scout take. This is Miami declaring war. The Dolphins are not tossing pebbles in the pond. They're dropping boulders. This is a franchise that turned Tyreek Hill into a glitch in the Matrix and made Tua look like a video game cheat code. They've built the NFL's fastest offense, and now they've circled in on a quarterback Cleveland won't even let touch the field. They don't see Sanders as a maybe down the line piece. They see him as plug-and-play elite. And that right there makes the Browns look ridiculous. Like a millionaire polishing a Ferrari in the garage while refusing to drive it because his rusty 1997 Honda Civic has character. And Cleveland fans? Oh, they are fuming. These people have lived through 2 decades of quarterback heartbreak. They've suffered through the jersey of shame with a scroll of failed QB names long enough to roll down East 9th Street. They finally saw a spark in Shedeur, primetime son, a kid with swagger, real arm talent, and leadership dripping off him. Yet instead of leaning in, their coach Kevin Stefanski seems allergic to the idea of letting him shine. The man guards his system tighter than crown jewels and treats Sanders like some harmless intern who should be fetching Gatorade instead of touchdowns. It doesn't matter that Sanders already won competitions in camp. It doesn't matter that outsiders are raving about him. Stefanski hides behind excuses while his boss, Andrew Berry, stands on the table calling Sanders the future. One guy sees the franchise savior. The other sees a rookie too risky for his precious system. And the tension between them? Nuclear. That's when Miami's timing becomes lethal. Because they're not just targeting a good player. They're exposing Cleveland's dysfunction, dragging it right into the spotlight for the whole league to see. While Andrew Berry is drowning in stress trying to referee between his coach and his fan base, the Dolphins show up like sharks circling the water, ready to steal Sanders at discount before the Browns even realize what's happening. The fans, meanwhile, have completely lost patience. Social media is flooded with photoshopped edits of Shedeur wearing a teal Dolphins jersey, lining up with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. It's not even wishful thinking anymore. It's begging. "Free him," they cry. "Get him out of Cleveland before this franchise ruins him, like they ruin every quarterback." Imagine loving your team so much that you'd rather watch your savior ball out for another franchise than rot on your own sideline. That's how toxic things have become in Ohio. The locker room feels it too. Reports keep leaking about veterans whispering behind Stefanski's back, questioning why he refuses to unleash Sanders. Young players are watching, taking notes, thinking, if they treat him like this, what does that say about my future here? That's how cultural cracks start forming inside a building, when the players believe loyalty to the player counts more than loyalty to the team. And hovering over this chaos is the biggest question of them all. What happens next? Because there are only 3 outcomes. 1. Berry storms Stefanski's office, slams the desk, and demands Sanders be put on the field immediately before this thing explodes. 2. Miami, or maybe another shark like Atlanta, New England, or even the Raiders, drops an offer so massive Cleveland can't even pretend to say no. And Sanders walks out the door before he ever really got started. or 3, nothing changes. Sanders stays handcuffed to the sidelines, and by the time Cleveland wakes up, his prime will already be burning away while their dysfunction once again becomes national comedy. Cleveland has turned this into more than a football dilemma. This is now a soap opera. You've got the stubborn coach clinging to his glory system, the desperate GM sweating through his suit trying to save his legacy, the superstar rookie frozen in limbo, rivals circling like sharks, and fans sharpening their pitchforks outside the stadium. All the ingredients for absolute chaos, and we're only in Chapter 1. Because make no mistake, this isn't just a quarterback controversy. This is Cleveland's entire identity sitting on the edge of collapse. And with Miami pushing harder every day, the Browns are about 2 headlines away from fumbling away one of the rarest gifts they've ever had. If any NFL franchise was going to storm in like an action movie villain and steal the spotlight, it had to be the Miami Dolphins. The Browns thought they had time, thought they could manage Shedeur Sanders on their own slow, cautious timeline. Then, out of nowhere, here comes Miami, smashing through the door with the swagger of a team that's not asking politely. They're demanding. This isn't a casual inquiry. This isn't a tapped-out phone call about possible interest. This is the Dolphins, a franchise built on speed, flash, and highlight reels, suddenly locking their gaze on Sanders like a hawk circling prey. And the statement is unmistakable. If Cleveland won't play him, we will. Think about the context. Miami already has Tyreek Hill, a receiver who moves like his controller is stuck on turbo mode. They've got Jalen Waddle, another burner who doesn't just run routes, he teleports. Together, they've built the fastest offense fans have ever seen. And yet, even with Tua Tagovailoa running the show and showing flashes of MVP brilliance, Miami's brass apparently believes they're one piece away from unlocking something even scarier. A young quarterback with Shedeur's arm talent, poise, and marketability. And that's why this revelation cuts so deep in Cleveland. Because while Stephanie's clipboard obsession keeps Sanders buried on the depth chart like some long-term science project, other franchises, legitimate playoff contenders, are circling like sharks. To Miami, Shedeur isn't some someday maybe experiment. He's ready. He's the Ferrari in the garage, begging for someone who actually knows how to drive it. And Miami sitting Sanders with Miami's skill group would be unfair, a cheat code added to an offense already overflowing with fireworks. The Dolphins' approach also highlights the sharpest contrast imaginable. In Cleveland, Sanders is still fighting for scout team crumbs, asked to run situational drills while the coaches baby-step their depth chart. In Miami, the pitch is obvious. Day 1, you're part of the show. No messy competitions, no ego wars between GMs and coaches, just pure offensive creativity built around his strengths. That difference says everything. Miami isn't scared. They're opportunistic and ruthless. 2 qualities Cleveland has rarely shown when it comes to quarterbacks. And if you zoom out, that's exactly why Miami has been a playoff-relevant team while the Browns are still trying to figure out how to spell stability. Of course, what makes all of this sting worse is the naked timing. The Browns finally draft a quarterback who sells jerseys, commands attention, and actually excites the fan base. And immediately, Miami sniffs out dysfunction and drops a line in the water. It's not even subtle. It's Miami announcing to the league that while Cleveland drags its feet, they'll be the ones to cash in. From a fan's perspective, it feels humiliating. Every headline about Miami targeting Sanders doubles as a headline that screams Cleveland doesn't value what they have. Every rumor about potential trade packages makes the Browns look less like a team protecting a gem and more like a babysitter who left the back door unlocked. And Miami knows it. That's the ruthless genius behind their move. They don't just make Sanders look attractive by comparison. They make Cleveland look incompetent. For Andrew Berry, who once strutted like he'd stolen the draft when landing Sanders, this is his nightmare. His golden ticket is suddenly in someone else's hand, and the more Miami pushes, the more obvious it looks that the Browns don't even know how to hold it. So now, Cleveland is stuck in an impossible position. Either put Sanders on the field immediately to prove they believe in him, or risk watching Miami, a team with Super Bowl weapons already in place, swoop in and take him. And what happens when fans see Sanders lighting up South Beach while they're stuck in the freezing cold, watching another carousel of mediocrity behind center? Disaster. This is why fans say Cleveland never gets to keep nice things. Because every time something good lands in their lap, another franchise notices the Browns' hesitation and steals it out from under them. Miami saw blood in the water, and now they're circling harder than ever. And for Cleveland, the panic is only beginning. But if you thought Miami's entrance was explosive, the real drama was just getting started. Because inside Cleveland, this wasn't just about trades or depth charts. It was about a power struggle ripping apart the franchise from the inside. If Miami crashing the party was the outside chaos, the real implosion in Cleveland is happening inside its own walls. Because forget Dolphins trade rumors for a moment. The Browns already had their own quarterback war percolating in-house. And at the center of it all, a tug-of-war that looks less like football strategy and more like a dysfunctional company boardroom spat. On one side sits Andrew Berry, the cool-headed general manager who staked his credibility on drafting Shedeur Sanders. To Berry, this kid isn't just another rookie. He's the centerpiece, the quarterback Cleveland has been praying for since Tim Couch first donned orange and brown. Ask him privately, and Berry still swears that drafting Sanders was one of the greatest heists of his career, a moment of triumph he could put on his personal highlight reel. But walk down the hall to the head coach's office, and you'll find an entirely different reality. Kevin Stefanski, clipboard practically glued to his palm, sees things very differently. To him, Sanders isn't a savior, he's a disruption. Stefanski's entire football philosophy is built on control, routine, and players slotting obediently into his carefully designed system. Shedeur represents the opposite: raw star power, improvisation, swagger, unpredictability. And Stefanski's allergic to it. The man clings to his system like it's a family heirloom, too sacred to tarnish. That's where the friction explodes. Because while Berry is out in public hailing Sanders as the future, Stefanski plays coy with reporters. He hides behind vague coach speak, talks about development timelines, and exposing guys to different things. Translation? Delay. Hesitate. Anything but giving Sanders the offense and letting him cook. Cleveland fans don't even need translation anymore. They can hear the stubbornness baked into every Stefanski press conference. And the players feel it too. Inside the locker room, veterans reportedly side-eye the head coach's refusal to trust Sanders. While younger guys wonder if this is just Cleveland being Cleveland again, wasting talent out of pure pride. If Berry is the visionary, Stefanski is the gatekeeper. And the growing perception is that the gatekeeper is more concerned with protecting his clipboard than his quarterback. Now put yourself in Berry's shoes for a moment. Imagine staking your reputation, your draft credibility, and a chunk of the franchise's identity on a quarterback, only to watch your own coach bury him on the depth chart like a forgotten backup. That's not just frustrating, it's humiliating. Every snap Sanders sits is a silent critique of Berry's judgment. It turns his boldest front office move into a punchline. And every time outsiders, like Miami, hint they'd unlock Sanders immediately, it feels like another dagger twisting in his back. This is why the whispers about a looming showdown are getting louder. Sources inside Berea describe the tension as unmistakable. It's not just differing philosophies anymore. It's two leaders pulling the franchise in opposite directions. Berry pace-walking halls in frustration, Stefanski doubling down in defiance, and Shedeur, the guy caught in between, forced to watch his career treated like a pawn in an ego war. Fans have picked up on it too. To them, Stefanski has crossed into stubborn-to-a-fault territory. He isn't just being cautious anymore. He's digging his heels into the dirt out of sheer ego. Protecting the system doesn't sound noble when the system hasn't produced playoff consistency. Meanwhile, Barry's desperation is starting to leak through, like a dad trying to referee kids fighting over the Xbox controller. Except the kids are his franchise and his coach, and the controller is the quarterback who's supposed to define their future. And in moments like that, the comparisons write themselves. Miami looks hungry and organized. New Orleans, when they were circling, looked aggressive and deliberate. Cleveland looks fractured, with a coach and GM who might as well be living on different planets. The tragedy here is obvious. The Browns finally find rare talent, and instead of aligning behind him, they turn him into a political football within their own building. Barry shouting he's the guy, Stefanski muttering, "Not yet," while rival teams laugh and fans rage. It's dysfunction layered on dysfunction, and it's the kind of storm that doesn't end with everyone walking out arm in arm. So now the clock is ticking. Sooner or later, Barry either has to slam the table and force Stefanski's hand, or Stefanski risks losing the locker room entirely. Because nothing unravels a team faster than watching leadership trip over itself trying to handle the one thing every franchise needs most: a quarterback worth believing in. And if you think the fan base is going to sit quietly through this civil war, you haven't been online lately. Because while Barry and Stefanski battle it out, the crowd outside has already chosen their side. And it isn't Stefanski's. If you ever want to know when a franchise is truly in trouble, don't watch the GM pressers or the coach interviews. Watch the fans. In Cleveland, the fan reaction to Shedeur Sanders' bizarre benching has been less of a slow burn and more of a full-blown uprising. And honestly, you can't blame them. These are people who've been living with quarterback heartbreak for decades. For them, patience isn't just thin, it's long gone. The initial spark was social media. Within hours of Miami's rumored interest in Sanders, Brown's Twitter turned into a digital riot. Hashtags like Free Shedeur and Play the Kid spread faster than an Odell one-hander highlight. Then came the edit wars. Photoshopped images of Sanders in a teal Dolphins jersey, hurling touchdown bombs to Tyreek Hill, flooded Instagram and TikTok. Fans weren't shy about where their loyalties lay. They openly said they'd rather see him prosper elsewhere than rot on Cleveland's bench. That's not fan-base disloyalty. That's fan-base rebellion. And the rebellion leapt from screens into the streets. Local TV coverage caught groups of fans gathering outside the Browns facility with homemade signs. Some were desperate pleas, "Don't ruin Sanders like you did all the others," while others were blunt threats. "Bench him again and we're done." In Cleveland, where football runs closer to religion than sport, these images drove home a brutal truth. The fans don't just want Sanders to play. They're demanding it with the fervor of a protest movement. It wasn't only the young meme-posting crowd either. Sports radio talk lines got jammed with callers. Parents, grandparents, even lifelong season ticket holders called in, like they were filing police reports against the organization. Some voices cracked with rage, demanding Barry storm Stefanski's office immediately. One older caller simply sighed and said, "I've seen this movie. Same ending every time. The Browns waste the quarterback, then wonder why the fans are furious." That line hit hard because it's true. And while the outrage was loud, the shift in loyalty was even louder. More than loyalty to the orange helmet, more than loyalty to team tradition, fans have shifted their allegiance to Sanders himself. They're not Browns diehards defending the system anymore. They're Shedeur diehards defending him from his own system. Every wasted rep, every preseason shot of the rookie pacing with his helmet under his arm adds fuel to a movement that feels less like fandom and more like activism. For Cleveland's front office, that's dangerous. Because once the fans stop identifying with the team and start identifying with the player, the organization loses leverage completely. The irony here is thick. Cleveland finally drafts a quarterback who excites the people, sells jerseys, and makes highlight clips go viral. And instead of harnessing the wave, they're drowning in it. Fans aren't showing up to trust the process. They're showing up to scream at the process through paper signs and hashtags. And each protest makes the front office look more disconnected from the very base they rely on. National media personalities only amplified the noise. On ESPN, clips of angry Browns fans carrying Free Sanders signs ran alongside syrupy commentary. Look at this. They're not asking, they're begging. Late-night shows even joked about Cleveland's crisis, with one quip making the rounds. The Browns treat quarterbacks like Cleveland potholes. They see one, ignore it for a while, and eventually pretend it never existed. The laughter stung. But for Browns fans, it wasn't funny. It was reality. You know the unrest is real when fans start breaking one of the unspoken codes. Some began encouraging Sanders publicly to get out while he still can. In call-in rants, in Reddit threads, even in viral memes, the tone is clear. Save yourself, Shedeur. We'll root for you in another jersey if it means seeing you succeed. That's an extraordinary breach of team loyalty. When fans would rather watch you shine across the country than sit at home in First Energy Stadium. They're no longer begging for tweaks. They're delivering ultimatums. And the Browns can feel it. Every photo of a fan edit, every angry voicemail, every trending hashtag turns this saga into a referendum on management incompetence. Andrew Berry knows his job security isn't just about wins and losses anymore. It's about whether he can pacify a fan base that's basically in open revolt. Stefanski, meanwhile, looks increasingly like the villain in everyone's eyes, clinging to his clipboard while the city outside torches his game plan in effigy. This isn't frustration. This is a boiling point. And the only way the steam escapes is if Shedeur hits the field. Cleveland can either rip off the Band-Aid or risk watching their own community turn every Sunday into a protest. But as angry as the fan base already is, the locker room was next to crack. And that internal mutiny made the outside noise look like a warm-up act. It's one thing when fans start revolting outside the stadium. But when the energy in the locker room begins to mirror that chaos, you've gone from a public relations headache to an outright organizational crisis. And right now, multiple reports suggest Shedeur Sanders' situation is doing exactly that in Cleveland. Veteran players, the backbone of any NFL roster, are reportedly whispering their frustrations loud enough that they might as well be shouted. Behind closed doors, they've seen Stefanski's reluctance to put Sanders on the field, and to many of them, it feels less like development and more like sabotage. To the older guys, linemen bruised from years of grinding, defensive stalwarts wasting their prime waiting for offensive stability, this kind of handling doesn't just frustrate, it angers. Because they know their personal windows are short. They've got only a handful of shots left at contention. And watching a talented rookie get buried for no logical reason feels like the staff is stealing time right out of their careers. Take the reported mood of the offensive line. These are the men tasked with protecting the quarterback, and insiders suggest they've started grumbling that they'd rather block for Sanders than continue pretending with Cleveland's placeholder depth chart. Why? Because even in limited reps, he brings energy. He excites the crowd, invigorates teammates, and makes protecting him feel worth the bruises. Compared to the current carousel, Sanders is the one who makes their work meaningful. That sentiment, however quietly expressed, is a dangerous crack in Stefanski's support. The receivers, meanwhile, are torn. For skill players whose contracts and reputations revolve around statistics, the quarterback matters more than any other factor. If Shedeur's arm talent means more deep passes, more highlight moments, and better production, then it also means bigger contract leverage down the line. Several reports indicate younger wideouts are quietly lobbying for the rookie to get his shot, seeing him as not just the best chance for wins, but the best chance for their own careers. When the players start aligning with the benched quarterback over the head coach, the writing is already flashing on the wall. Of course, not everyone is openly in Sanders' corner. Some veterans, wary from years of Brown's dysfunction, reportedly stick with the head coach's mantra of trust the process. But even those voices are quieter than usual. And here's the key. Locker rooms can smell indecision. Players won't always say it to the press, but they know when their leaders aren't in sync. With Barry and Stefanski tugging against each other, the players are caught in the middle of an unspoken custody battle. And the longer it drags on, the more the locker room morale crumbles. To make matters worse, younger players see Sanders' ordeal as a kind of blueprint. For years, rookies in Cleveland were taught to keep your head down, wait your turn. Sanders, however, has all the leverage, all the media backing, and fans chanting his name before he's even a starter. The message to other rookies? If the organization won't empower you, external noise will. Of course, not everyone is openly in Sanders' corner. Some veterans, wary from years of Brown's dysfunction, reportedly stick with the head coach's mantra of trust the process. But even those voices are quieter than usual. And here's the key. Locker rooms can smell indecision. Players won't always say it to the press, but they know when their leaders aren't in sync. With Barry and Stefanski tugging against each other, the players are caught in the middle of an unspoken custody battle. And the longer it drags on, the more the locker room morale crumbles. To make matters worse, younger players see Sanders' ordeal as a kind of blueprint. For years, rookies in Cleveland were taught to keep your head down, wait your turn. Sanders, however, has all the leverage, all the media backing, and fans chanting his name before he's even a starter. The message to other rookies? If the organization won't empower you, external noise will. Play your cards right, and you can force their hand or force your way out. That's a terrifying precedent for leadership. A front office cannot afford to let its own rookies start doubting the franchise more than they doubt opponents. And then there are the whispers about outright mutiny. Local beat writers and league insiders drop hints that Stefanski's leash in the locker room is shortening by the day. Reports suggest veterans close to turning their back on him if the situation persists. They're tired of watching a coach cling to his stubborn system while opportunity wastes away on the sideline. For Sanders, this means the locker room itself could start splitting between team play him and team sit him. That's not competition, that's civil war. Nothing derails a season faster than civil war. Add the Dolphins rumors to the mix, and the fractures deepen. Imagine being a Browns receiver, watching national headlines about Miami envisioning Sanders torching defenses with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, while you're still waiting for a simple chance to build timing with him in practice. Of course, resentment builds. Of course, players wonder why their own franchise refuses to unleash him when other organizations see his value immediately. That's how locker rooms collapse. Not in one dramatic moment, but drip by drip, until trust erodes beyond repair. And right now, Cleveland is leaking fast. The culture in Berea is fragile, and the cracks are widening. Stefanski thinks time is on his side, but the truth is that every week Sanders sits, he's not just losing fans, he's losing his team. And once a coach loses the team, there's only one storyline left: the beginning of the end. By the time the fans had turned the internet into a riot and the locker room started whispering mutiny, the national media was already circling like vultures over a stranded deer. Cleveland's chaos wasn't just a football story anymore. It was headline entertainment. A soap opera that every network and blog wanted a piece of. The sports networks dove in first. On ESPN, a whole segment was dedicated to Cleveland's quarterback confusion, with a bold chyron screaming across the bottom of the screen, "What's wrong in Cleveland?" Analysts shook their heads in unison, some with pity, most with amusement. Stephen A. Smith practically lost his mind. "It's malpractice," he shouted. You don't draft this kid. You don't bring him into your building and then treat him like he's a water boy. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins are begging for the keys. It makes no sense whatsoever. A few channels over, Skip Bayless fired his own cannon. The Browns are about to fumble away a quarterback before he even takes the snap, he scoffed. Classic Cleveland. They've spent decades fumbling games. Now they're fumbling the future. The clip shot across social media within hours, racking up millions of views, while Browns fans groaned in collective disgust. Not at Skip, but at the fact that for once, they couldn't even argue with him. Fox, CBS, NFL Network, it was all the same chorus. One panelist on Good Morning Football quipped, "The Browns finally find a Ferrari, but they're still trying to ride around in a station wagon." Even the more analytical shows couldn't resist a jab, rolling out graphics comparing Sanders' energy and numbers in limited reps to other rookies who started immediately. The conclusion was always the same. Something is broken in Cleveland. And then came the satire. Late-night hosts picked up the saga, cracking jokes about the Browns' infamous jersey of failed quarterbacks, now adding, the only franchise dumb enough to have a franchise QB and still act like they don't. Memes exploded on Twitter and TikTok. One viral clip had footage of Sanders throwing lasers in preseason, spliced next to a coach shrugging and saying, "Nah, we're good." Another had Miami fans holding open arms in a come-home edit, captioned, "When your ex finally realizes you were the best thing they ever had." This relentless attention had a compounding effect. Every time a media personality called out Cleveland by name, it validated the frustrations of fans at home. Twitter hashtags turned into national trends, further embarrassing the front office. Cleveland wasn't just fighting Miami now. They were fighting a narrative spinning out of control. By midweek, practically every sports talk show had turned Sanders' benching into the go-to example of bad management. Meanwhile, rival teams jumped into the fun. Ravens fans, always eager to poke their AFC North nemesis, chimed in with memes about "Thanks for scouting him, we'll take it from here." Saints fans piled on, mocking Cleveland for ignoring what New Orleans was actively begging for. Even neutral fan bases started using the story as shorthand. You'd see jokes like, "At least we're not the Browns." Painful? Yes, but impossible to deny. And as if the ridicule wasn't enough, agents and insiders began chiming in too. Anonymous league sources told NFL Network that more than half a dozen teams are keeping tabs on Cleveland's handling of Sanders. Translation? If the Browns slip even once, phones will start ringing. That leak wasn't just a rumor. It was strategic, putting public pressure on Cleveland. By implying the longer Sanders sits, the more the league treats him as a tradable asset. To fans, it looked like vultures circling. To the Browns, it must have felt like open season hunting. Every week Sanders rides the bench, the media attention grows. His every throw in practice becomes a viral clip. Every time reporters ask Stefanski about his decision, fans watch his vague non-answers like courtroom evidence. Each deflection only fuels more headlines. Does Stefanski really not trust Shedeur? The national spotlight has turned Sanders into both a symbol of hope and a flashing billboard of Cleveland's dysfunction. And that's the worst part of all. Because Cleveland isn't just losing a PR battle. They're losing credibility. Around the league, this saga is turning into a brand. The Browns have become the NFL's reality show again. The franchise that always finds a way to turn rare opportunity into public disaster. And with every punchline and every bold letter graphic flashing across screens, the weight on Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski grows heavier. The fans revolted, the locker room cracked, and now the media has declared open season on Cleveland's chaos. But as intense as the coverage has been, the scariest part for the Browns is that it's not just Miami circling anymore. Other teams have seen the smoke, and they're sniffing the air for fire. Miami might be the loudest shark snapping its jaws at Shedeur Sanders, but make no mistake, they're not the only predator in the water. league insiders are whispering that teams across the NFL are sharpening their spears, scribbling down trade packages, and preparing the moment Cleveland finally blinks. The Browns thought they were just dealing with one circling fin. Turns out the whole sea is stalking their quarterback. First on the list is Atlanta, and truthfully, they make too much sense. This is a franchise forever chasing its identity post-Matt Ryan, stuck in limbo with half measures that never truly moved the needle. Falcons fans are restless, aching for a real leader under center. And bringing in the son of primetime, who once electrified Atlanta as a cornerback, would be a marketing and football slam dunk. Imagine Sanders walking into Mercedes-Benz Stadium, introduced not just as the new quarterback, but as a continuation of the Sanders legacy. Atlanta's already a city that craves flash and energy. Shedeur's swagger fits like it was tailor-made. Then there's New England. Once the gold standard of quarterback development under Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, the Patriots have been wandering the desert since Brady left town. Mac Jones was supposed to be the answer. He wasn't. Bailey Zappi? Fun for a meme or two. This is a historic franchise with a powerful fan base that does not tolerate mediocrity. Shedeur Sanders, with a famous last name, confidence, and box office skill set, would instantly electrify a team and city desperate for relevance. And let's be honest, the thought of Belichick or whoever succeeds him sculpting Sanders into a new era feels like catnip for every talking head in sports media. The Raiders loom quietly too. Las Vegas thrives on spectacle, and Sanders is spectacle personified. Vegas lives to put stars on its billboards and lights on its strip. Right now, they've got Davante Adams stacked with frustration, a fan base grumbling under the weight of mediocrity, and zero stability at quarterback. Insert Sanders into the equation, and suddenly, the Raiders get everything they want. Juice for the fans, a future face of the franchise, and someone who sells jerseys as easily as he completes passes. Shedeur in black and silver? That image alone looks like it was designed in a marketing lab. And don't sleep on Minnesota. Kirk Cousins isn't forever, and the Vikings, with weapons like Justin Jefferson, have every incentive to ensure the transition is seamless when the inevitable changing of the guard arrives. For Sanders, it'd be the softest landing spot imaginable. Step into a franchise with offensive firepower already in place, inherit the best receiver in football, and leave the baggage of Cleveland's instability behind. Sources suggest even Minnesota, a franchise that prides itself on stability, is patiently monitoring Sanders' situation. Translation: the second things break badly in Cleveland, the phone buzzes in Berea. And the list doesn't stop there. Denver, Tampa, even the Rams. Every franchise that's only one quarterback away from flipping its fate reportedly has at least an eye on Cleveland's growing disaster. Half the league doesn't even need Sanders right now, but all of them recognize the same thing. Once dysfunction sets in like poison, no talent is safe in Cleveland. That's why rival teams are circling. Not because they doubt Shedeur's ability, but because they trust Cleveland's inability. History has taught them that no matter how much talent lands in town, the Browns somehow manage to mishandle it. Sanders' saga is looking no different. For rivals, that's not tragedy, that's opportunity. And here's the kicker. Every day Sanders stays benched, his stock rises outside Cleveland. Every practice throw that goes viral, every national pundit slamming Stefanski, every whisper of locker room unrest, it all builds the case for external teams to swoop in. In a league where perception drives value almost as much as production, Cleveland's hesitation is essentially doing free advertising for Sanders as the most available, hottest asset in football. Fans can feel it, too. That's why you now see Reddit threads full of Cleveland diehards admitting aloud what they never thought they'd say. If they're not going to play him, trade him somewhere that will. For a franchise already scarred by decades of quarterback heartbreak, the idea of fans cheering his escape instead of his entrance shows just how dangerous the moment has become. Miami may be the front-page shark circling with open jaws, but Cleveland should know this: the ocean is full of predators. And if they keep fumbling their one chance at stability, It won't be long before another team snatches Sanders, and once again, the Browns are left staring at the wreckage, wondering how they blew it this time. Every quarterback controversy has a window. There's always that invisible clock ticking in the background while everyone involved pretends they've got time. But with Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns, that clock isn't invisible anymore. It's loud, it's glaring, and every tick feels like a grenade with the pin halfway pulled. Fans can hear it, reporters can hear it, and most terrifyingly of all, the roster can hear it. Every day Sanders spends chained to the sideline, that clock ticks louder, echoing through Berea like a warning siren. For Browns GM Andrew Berry, it's become a personal nightmare. Sources close to the organization describe him pacing late at night, refreshing social media on his phone, like a college kid cramming for finals, terrified the next big headline will be Miami sends blockbuster package for Sanders. He knows exactly what that would mean. His legacy, cooked forever. Drafting the crown jewel only to gift wrap him for another franchise? That's not just a mistake. That's grounds for his name to be carved into Cleveland's long book of shame. And Berry knows it. The pressure on him isn't gradual anymore. It's immediate, pounding, like waves crashing against a dam about to split. On the other side, Kevin Stefanski is acting like fuel on the fire. Instead of calming the noise, his coach speak only makes it worse. Asked why Sanders isn't seeing live reps, Stefanski shrugs, behind cliches about evaluation and exposing guys to different things. To fans and players, it feels less like strategy and more like stonewalling. And every vague answer turns him from the cautious coach into the villain of the saga. He digs in deeper, protecting his system, even as that system leaks credibility like a busted pipe. Meanwhile, the timing couldn't be worse. Other teams can afford growing pains this early in the season. Cleveland? Not so much. They've been on the brink for years. One step forward, two faceplants back. The fan base didn't rally behind Shedeur because they expected patience. They rallied behind him because they wanted escape from the heartbreak cycle. They wanted the one quarterback to finally break the curse. Sitting him down while whispers of trade offers and rival suitors swirl only makes fans feel like the organization is sabotaging its own miracle. And in a way, that's the cruelest irony. The Browns finally drafted a quarterback the fans adore, a name brand with swagger. And instead of flipping momentum in their favor, they've managed to smother it in bureaucratic hesitation. Every snap he doesn't play equals one more reminder that Cleveland, yet again, doesn't know how to handle what it has. Inside the locker room, tension builds like steam in a boiler. Veterans who know their prime years are limited watch from the sidelines thinking, why waste our window on development games? Younger players, glued to their phones, see national memes mocking their franchise and wonder what it means for their own future. And Sanders himself? He stays cool in public, helmet on, locked in. But every day that passes, the narrative grows stronger. He's too good to be wasting away on that bench. Tick, tock. That's the sound chasing Cleveland. Miami's calls grow louder. Atlanta, New England, Vegas, and other opportunists keep scribbling hypothetical packages, waiting for Berry to crack under pressure. The media keeps circling with bold letter graphics about Cleveland dysfunction. And fans keep chanting online and in parking lots, hammering at the gates like angry villagers in a movie scene. Every piece compounds the urgency. Every tick of that invisible grenade clock feels heavier. What's the endgame? Only 3 roads remain. Either Berry storms Stefanski's office and drops the ultimatum, play him or pack your clipboard. Or a rival team like Miami shoves a trade offer so massive it blows the doors off Berea before Cleveland can blink. Or nothing changes. Stefanski keeps clinging to his system, Berry keeps sweating bullets, Sanders stays sidelined, and the clock finally hits 0. And when it does, the grenade goes off, scattering the franchise back into the same wreckage it's known for decades. Oh, talk. That's all anyone hears in Cleveland now. The Browns thought they had time, but in football, time isn't a cushion. Time is a trap. And every wasted snap is one step closer to Shedeur Sanders wearing someone else's jersey while Cleveland fans sit in their seats, clutching the latest name on the jersey of failure, asking themselves once again, how did we blow it this time? When you step back and look at everything swirling around Cleveland right now, it feels less like a football season and more like the final act of a Greek tragedy. You've got a franchise that finally stumbled onto what looks like salvation, a franchise quarterback with star power, poise, marketability, and legacy attached to his last name. And instead of embracing him, they've chained him to the sideline while the clock ticks louder and louder. To fans, it's madness. To the locker room, it's sabotage. And to the rest of the league, it's opportunity. The Browns have managed to turn what should have been a triumphant story, drafting Shedeur Sanders, into a national soap opera. A GM who swears he's found the guy. A coach who clings to a rusted system like it's made of gold. A fan base sharpening pitchforks and begging their savior to walk away before Cleveland infects him with its decades-long curse. And rival teams circling like sharks, waiting for the exact moment the Browns' hesitation becomes their gain. Miami was just the first to smell the blood in the water. Since then, Atlanta's been scribbling down scenarios. New England's been paying attention like a hawk. Vegas has been licking its chops, and even Minnesota has been lurking in the background, quietly preparing a safety net in case Cleveland implodes. What does that tell you? It tells you the rest of the NFL already believes what Cleveland refuses to admit, that Sanders is a rare quarterback talent, and he will thrive somewhere, if not here. Meanwhile, the media has piled on like it's free barbecue day. Every segment on cable sports is blasting Stefanski's unwillingness to play Sanders, every headline screams the word dysfunction, and every meme paints the Browns as the NFL's permanent punchline. The narrative has spun beyond their control. Even if Cleveland wanted to downplay things, they can't. The genie's out of the bottle, and it's dancing on TikTok in a Dolphins jersey. And inside that pressure cooker sits Andrew Berry, sweating through his suit, pacing at 3 a.m. while refreshing his Twitter feed for damage control. Because here's the truth Berry knows deep down. If Sanders walks, whether it's through a blockbuster trade to Miami or another team's offer, his legacy is done. You don't get second chances after gift wrapping what might be the only quarterback miracle your city has seen in decades. His name would be burned into Cleveland infamy alongside every other what-if quarterback misstep, forever part of the jersey list of shame. Kevin Stefanski, meanwhile, looks more isolated with every passing game. His iron-grip defense of his system no longer comes across as discipline. It comes across as pride. And nothing tanks a locker room faster than a coach who looks like he'd rather be right than win. Players know it, fans know it, and the longer Sanders sits, the louder that narrative becomes. It's no longer about patience, it's about stubbornness, and stubbornness is a fire that burns everything around it. So here we are. Sanders is caught in the middle of a drama bigger than himself. Does he gut it out, trusting Cleveland will eventually wake up before it's too late? Or does he pack it up, take the open arms of Miami, or Atlanta, or New England, or Vegas, and start writing his legend in a city that actually believes in him? Either way, history is watching, because Sanders' next step won't just shape his career, it will ripple across the league, setting new precedents for rookie leverage, fan power, and player empowerment. And for Cleveland, this is it, their last chance. Either they finally pull the pin out of the grenade, stop the clock, and hand Shedeur the keys, or they become what they've always feared, the cautionary tale, the what not to do staircase rung for every other NFL team to step over. Tick-tock, that's where the Browns are now. The fan base is restless, the media is merciless, the rivals are circling, And the quarterback who could define their future is standing right in front of them, waiting. This isn't just another contract decision. It isn't just another depth chart shuffle. This is Cleveland staring down destiny and deciding whether to embrace it or fumble it like they always do.